And as part of the iMoot team, I would like to welcome Joyce, a woman who needs absolutely no introduction because everyone here knows her. She's amazing in every right. And go ahead.
All right, thanks, Carrie, and thanks everyone for waiting around for me as I got sorted. Today, this session was set up very kindly by the Pukunui team in order to give me a little bit of time to talk to everyone about a blog that we set up last year. We set it up just before the iMoot last year, which is all about learner experience design, and you can find it at www.lxdesign.co. And we've also got a Twitter account, which is at lxdesignco. And what we're trying to do there is to gather stories from people who are doing learner experience design, or people who are thinking about it, or who have positions on it. The main reason when Wendy contacted me and said, did I have something that I wanted to share? The main reason that I wanted to share it is because we are very keen for people to come in and join us as guest bloggers. So we're always looking for stories from people who are doing something around learning design, but particularly from the experience design or user experience angle. We we're happy to take posts that are syndicated, so posts that have been published somewhere else, and then do a republish on the blog as well. So this has happened a few times with people who we had someone who, for instance, was keen at South by Southwest EDU and heard us talking about LX design, and then she wrote a blog on her own blog, and then I was like, well, this is really awesome, and I'd love to share it like in this kind of central hub. So anything like that, we're very keen to get those stories from people. If you're thinking like, oh, I don't know, what would it be about? Some of the stuff that we've written about before, and that you might want to go in and follow up on, is I wrote a post a little while ago that was based on my conversations with someone very much like us, who had gotten in touch with me and said, look, they're trying to make me be like digital learning manager or blended learning manager, and I'm thinking that it doesn't really describe what I want to do, and I was like, well, that's so we had this whole talk in the back channel, and I said, well, maybe you want to call yourself learner experience architect, because maybe the work that we do now is actually has got more in common with the work that UX people do in their respective organizations. And so we had a bit of a talk about this, and then I was like, I should totally write this up. And then because we now have the blog, I've actually got a place where I can do that. So I wrote a blog piece that's called "You Just Might Be a Learning Experience Architect." And then because I run the blog together with my friend Jess Knott, who works at Michigan State University, she's got she actually used to work as a UX person in a company in Michigan, which ran a learning technology tool, and she worked as a UX person there. And then now that she's transitioned back into her role as manager of learning design at Michigan State University, she's actually started to kind of upskill her team of learning designers in some of these UX techniques. So kind of as a follow-up to what I wrote, she wrote another post called "The Hows and Whats of an Accomplished LX Designer," in which she just shares some of the things that you can start to do and that you need to do as an LX designer. And then another recent post is from my friend Amy Wilson, and that was based on a really interesting report that came out. I don't know whether you guys caught it. I'll try to find the link later and share it with you. But there was a report that came out about instructional design in higher education. Came out in the States, and it was all about just how pivotal instructional designers actually are in most institutions, but and that they do a lot of things that actually go way beyond instructional design. So the actual instructional design part of their roles is very often only about 10% or 10 to 20%, and then they do all of these other jobs around it. There's training and there's professional development, and one of the things that came out there is project management. And my friend Dr. Amy Wilson, who is at Bay of Plenty Polytech in New Zealand, and she and I have done some work developing and delivering the LX design workshops that we do with Academic Tribe. She's been banging this drum for a long time, saying that, really, we do so much work that is project management. And sometimes, we're the only ones who are managing the project, but it can also really put you in like a difficult position, because quite often you don't formally get given that project management role. So, so she wrote a blog post kind of based on that. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that we're very interested to kind of hear people's stories, and we're really interested, particularly if you can tie it to some of the work that's coming out of the industry. So we're interested in case studies. We're interested if you may be reading something, particularly around UX or learning design, and you're like, oh, I don't know that that's really true for me. So your critical views are welcome, but also really happy to get some reviews of like tools and reviews of books as well. Really, all you need to do is just currently I'm working on putting up author guidelines a page, but while we're still kind of setting that up, I'm happy to take any emails. So you can just email me at joyce@academictribe.co, or you can just send me a DM in the back channel, and then I'm happy to get your views on that as well. If you are more visually engaged, then I can also recommend the boards that we're curating. And again, this is something that that Jess and I do together as part of the. I'm just getting the link for you. That Jess and I do together, and we consider it part of the blog, because LX design tends to be a really visual field, because it's all about communication, really. And so we've set up a Pinterest board that is all about LX design. So share that in the chat there. And the other interesting thing that we'll be rolling out pretty soon at the blog is a podcast. So when I went to South by Southwest EDU, as I was getting on the plane, I was like, I decided to like load up so I've really gotten into listening to podcasts for the last 2 years, and mainly around UX. And I was getting on the plane, so I was loading up my device with all of the casts that I wanted to listen to on the plane, and then as I was listening on the plane, listening to this UX podcast where these guys had gone to a conference, and they were like, well, we're just going to record all these interviews with people while we're there, because we want to share with you, and all these big names are here. And I thought, this is what I need to do while I'm at South by Southwest, because I know that I'm going to meet all these amazing design people, and I always end up having great conversations with them, and then think to myself, oh, I really should blog this, but blogging is, can be really kind of like hard work. Well, I suppose hard work, but I'm not a natural writer, so for me it takes quite a bit of effort. But I always have these great conversations, and thought that this would be a great way to actually contribute to them. Sorry, just checking that my cat is okay. And so what I found was, I thought I should just start a podcast. So I actually did set up I kind of landed, and almost the next day went out to the store to buy a nice big giant microphone. And I've got all of these really wonderful interviews that I got to do with some very talented designers there. There's some people from the Teachers Guild who've been rolling out a big design thinking project across the states. If you haven't found them yet, go take a look at their posts, particularly if you work in schools. The work that they're doing is really amazing, and the way that they're going about it is really interesting as well. They're partially supported by IDEO, the design company. And who are the other people that I did? Oh, I interviewed Whitney Kilgore, who is the chief academic officer at a learning design company called iDesign EDU, who operate out of Dallas. And I also interviewed someone who is working as a big proponent of XAPI. And so all of those podcasts are being edited as we speak, and they'll be rolled out pretty soon. And then, I just find that as I travel and as I meet people, it's really interesting to meet other people who are already working in the space. So last month when I was in New Zealand, I met several of the people from Core Education, who some of you might know, and they're doing some really interesting work around learner experience design as well. So I'm in the process of finding a time for that's good for us to record another one of those podcasts. So so that's some of the work that we've been doing around LX design, and really what we're trying to do is to um, create a space where we can all talk about these things and in a way that we can actually talk about it openly. So, so if you're keen to get involved, then we'd love to hear from you. It's Joyce at academictribe.co, and if you want to just knock around some ideas, that's perfectly fine as well. Oh, someone that I should mention here because some of you will know her is Perrin Rowland, who used to be a UX designer and is now a learning manager in Auckland. And she was really one of our first guest bloggers, so I just wanted to do a special call out to her. All right, so that's really all I've got on LX design. I'm happy to answer any questions if you've got some, or if you've got ideas for stories. I'm happy to kind of hear them as well. You can just drop them in the chat. I think it would be really interesting to get some stories from people, and I haven't been in an institution that uses Moodle for quite some time, but my thinking has always been that right from the get-go, Moodle was actually a um, one of the LMSs that actually really focused on the learner experience. I think what Martin built right straight away, this idea of having a difference, making a very explicit difference between having resources and activities. I think that was always one of the strong points in Moodle, because it always says, well, what will you actually do? What will you actually do? And I think it's in the doing that the experience actually happens. So I'd be really interested to hear from people, who are trying to build, real experiences through Moodle. So I'll actually, I'm very keen to follow up with uh, Tabitha and Miriam and Miranda, who presented yesterday about some of the work that they've been doing in trying to build this, professional development experience for the teachers that they work with. So if you've got a similar story, I'd love to hear it. Right. Any other questions, ideas, suggestions, topics you'd like to see? Lynn, I'm sorry to hear that. That's really terrible. Um, Perhaps it could be an aspirational story about, what it would look like if it did go your way. So,
Okay, I think I can unmute my mic now. I had some children running back and forth with some major issues while you were speaking. I apologize. Um, so we have the room for a little bit longer. So if there's any questions, we can keep the recording going. If not, if you're done, we can stop the recording now. And anyone who wants to stay around and chat is welcome
Yeah,
to.
I'll just reply to Teresa's idea there. Important for someone who helps lecturers put content online. It's important to remind them of their audience. I think that's what experience design is all about. It's about that feedback loop and closing the loop with the person that you're actually designing for. And it's one of the strong points that I think about UX is really that focus on the user. So for us, the learner. And there are lots of different ways of doing that in UX and lots of different methods that can actually help you kind of put the focus back on that. I thought it was interesting. I met with one of the CX teams, CX specialists at RMIT University yesterday morning, and she told me so a very popular UX tool is Persona, and I have seen them being used more and more in learning design work lately as well. But she told me about this zombie persona, and I was like, "What's a zombie persona?" And she said, "Because even when people don't design persona, it means that there are actually zombie persona in the room, which is that people have this version of the learner that they think that they're designing for in their head, and all the people who are working on that design are have got their own zombies kind of standing behind them, the person that they think that they're designing for. So I really like that zombie persona thing. So I think that might be one of my next posts. Maureen, I'm glad to hear that you've got my poster still up on the wall. And that is no longer, I think, my poster. That is a poster that firmly belongs to the Moodle community. Like I started it, but everyone has just made that into something that is much more than it was than when it started. You know, the excellent work that Gavin did in updating it, all of the translations that people have made, particularly into like minority languages. People have translated that into Catalan, and it's just been really amazing. And I think somebody also translated it into Maori. So it's just really uh, it's just been great to watch that be updated and be reused and see that it was so useful for people. So I don't think of that as my poster. I think of that as the Moodle community's poster very much. If you didn't attend the session that I did yesterday, I have put up another poster that we've been working on at Academic Tribe for which is about that we use in the LX design workshops, and it's a poster of the design process that we use, which is called a double diamond. So you can hop into that course. It's on the iMoot.org website, and you can download that poster if you like. And I'll probably be throwing it up on the blog in a few days as well.
Well, I think you're very modest because all of us think of it as your poster. I've given it to numerous teachers when I train them. So we all thank you for your contributions to the Moodle community. On behalf of the iMoot team, I'd like to thank you for your presentation today. I'm going to stop the recording now, but feel free to stick around and chat, okay?
Yeah, thank you, Carrie, and thanks to the Pukunui team for having me on.